The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is a game that needs no introduction. What started as a Wii U exclusive Zelda game, aptly named Zelda Wii U or Zelda U, was delayed so many times that it ended up releasing as a launch title on the Wii U successor, the Nintendo Switch, as well as the Wii U. Don't worry, they still love you, little buddy. Aww. Breath of the Wild redefined what it meant to be a Zelda game, throwing out the pre-established formula in favor of a seamless open world where you could explore Hyrule however you desired. This new direction for Breath of the Wild paid off big time, as not only did it win Game of the Year in 2017, but it also became the best-selling game in the series, as well as helping to propel the Nintendo Switch into where it is today. I remember being beyond excited when I received my copy of Breath of the Wild in 2017, and while I had played a few Zelda games before, Breath of the Wild was the game that opened my eyes and turned me into a Zelda fan, and made The Legend of Zelda my favorite franchise in all of gaming. Believe it or not, I like Zelda more than Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy. It's been many years since my first playthrough of Breath of the Wild, and while I did revisit this world in the sequel, Tears of the Kingdom, it didn't necessarily achieve the same magical feeling of exploring this version of Hyrule for the very first time. Of course, leave it to the kings of nostalgia baiting to whip out the most successful Zelda game and one of the most successful Switch games to re-release for the launch of their next console, the Nintendo Switch 2. Can you believe that Breath of the Wild has been released throughout 3 of Nintendo's console generations? And the game isn't even that old. Despite where you may stand on the concept of Nintendo Switch 2 editions, you cannot deny that Breath of the Wild looks fantastic through its Switch 2 edition. And with all these Switch 2 edition enhancements made to the game, I decided it was the perfect time to re-experience Breath of the Wild. Something that I was a bit worried about before replaying was if I would be able to enjoy the game the same way. You know, was the magic of my first playthrough something I could experience again? Well, that's what I'm here to answer in this video. Sit back, relax, cook up some dubious food as I dive into my replaythrough and look at the story, the world, gameplay, music, and more as I rediscover the magic of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Let's kick this video off with a look at Breath of the Wild's story. One of the aspects of this game I was really excited to experience again was the story. Just a wee bit of context, I was 11 when I played Breath of the Wild for the first time, and while there were some aspects and events I do remember, I had mostly forgotten the details and cutscenes and other stuff. Because I was younger when I first played, I was curious to see what I would pick up from an adult's perspective replaying. Breath of the Wild opens with Link awakening from this water chamber, presumably from a long slumber, or as Gen Z puts it, the Great Eepee. This always reminded me of that one part from The Empire Strikes Back, when Luke is in the big tank after being rescued. As Link awakens, he can hear the voice of a woman, which is easily deciphered to be the voice of Zelda, prompting him to grab a mysterious artifact known as the Sheikah Slate. After leaving what is known as the Shrine of Resurrection and witnessing one of the greatest openings in all of gaming, not as good as Skyrim's though, you will meet an old man whose name is, well, Old Man. Old Man will give you some info, crack a few jokes, and let on that he knows way more than he says he does. But overall, he does pose no threat. Once you make it to the point on your map, these huge towers will sprout out all across Hyrule. Zelda then speaks to Link again as we find out that Link has been asleep for 100 years and has a serious case of amnesia. We are also introduced to the beast known as Calamity Ganon as his evil presence emerges from Hyrule Castle. Old Man appears to Link again, and just as it's looking like we're leaving the Great Plateau, Old Man alerts us to the fact that Link needs a paraglider to get down from the plateau. After testing this out for ourselves, and learning there's a barrier at the bottom, Old Man offers to trade Link his glider in exchange for the treasure laying within the mysterious shrines that also popped up with the towers. We'll discuss shrines later on in this video, as I have a very different opinion on them than most. Don't worry, you'll see. In the shrine, you'll acquire a new rune ability for the Sheikah Slate and a spirit orb, which is the treasure Old Man is talking about. Old Man then tells you he actually requires a total of 4 spirit orbs, that cheeky old coot. After gathering the remaining orbs and rune abilities from the shrine scattered across the Great Plateau, we meet up with Old Man on the roof of the Temple of Time. Old Man reveals himself to be the King of Hyrule. The king then gives Link a lore dump about what happened 100 years ago, and then tasks Link with defeating Calamity Ganon and saving Hyrule and Zelda. After the king's exposition, the shackles are lifted and you are free to explore the world as you please. The Great Plateau and all of the quests on it act as a tutorial and setup for the rest of the game. It gets you familiar with the mechanics and abilities that Link has at his disposal. The Great Plateau is a fantastic tutorial area, however it does become trivial on subsequent playthroughs because I did know where everything is and how all the puzzles work. Thankfully, it's an easy area to breeze through, so I was able to get to the main game without any trouble at all. It's after the Great Plateau that we see how Breath of the Wild's narrative is going to progress for the rest of the game. One of the key goals the developers had when making Breath of the Wild was to not enforce any certain order on the player. This pretty much means that right after gliding off the Great Plateau, you can run up to the castle and challenge Ganon. You don't have to follow the plot in order to explore the world and reach the credits. If you do choose to follow the main story, you are led to Kakariko Village by the king, where the elder Impa lives. Impa tells Link about the Guardians and Divine Beasts, which are ancient Sheikah technology from 10,000 years ago. Impa tasks Link to reclaim his lost memories and free the champion spirits from the Divine Beasts. This is once again where the shackles are removed, as once Impa lore dumps and sends you on a camera-related side quest, you are free to recover the memories and free the Divine Beasts in whatever order you so choose. What I found really interesting about my most recent playthrough was how if you stick to just the main story quests, the game is rather short, and I believe that is because they split the narrative between what happened in the past and what happens in the present. The Lost Memories pretty much document and go through all the events of 100 years ago, from when the champions are chosen to when Calamity Ganon shows up. They give a lot of context to why the world is the way that it is in the present. While there is a order to watching them, you don't have to reclaim them in that order. Even if you do reclaim them out of order, you're still able to understand what happened in the past, and you won't get spoiled too badly. This is an aspect that the sequel Tears of the Kingdom messed up pretty bad, but we'll save Tears of the Kingdom for another video, so make sure you're subscribed. I do remember on my first playthrough getting the memories out of order, but for my most recent playthrough, I did decide to grab them all in the order they appear in the gallery. While I was able to watch past events in the order they canonically occurred, I think it's a lot more fun to discover them naturally while exploring. The memories are disconnected enough from each other that you can view them in any order. There are some that are more connected than others, but you're a smart cookie, you can put the context clues together. It was also nice to relive the main quests that take place in the present. Once you're done with Impa, she basically sends you to the capitals of each of the 4 races that inhabit Hyrule to go take care of their Divine Beast problem. In some way or another, these giant animal contraptions, don't call them Transformers, are causing a ruckus, and by freeing the beast and champions from Ganon, you're also saving a civilization of humanoid animals and 6-foot-tall women. I quite enjoyed going back through these quests, as there were many elements to each one that I had forgotten, and got to re-experience that fun. Something that was kinda jarring to re-experience was that the Master Sword, you know, the sword that seals the darkness, the blade of evil's bane, completely optional. Obviously, the sword is mentioned in dialogue and you see it in cutscenes, but unless you're feeling curious about that creepy-looking forest to the north, you are not prompted to get the sword, which, when you look at it through the lens of the devs not wanting to direct you towards one specific progression path, then yeah, it totally makes sense that the Master Sword is optional. Same here with the Great Fairy, although this is less egregious, as I'm fairly certain Link gets victimized by her. For my most recent playthrough, I wanted to keep up with the story at a more regular pace, just to see what the experience would be if I played it like a more traditional Zelda game or other RPG. What I found was that what really makes this game special and stand out is the freedom that you are given to really experience the game in any order. If you put the traditional Zelda formula onto this game, you would have a really basic, kinda boring Zelda game. Don't get me wrong, there are still all of the epic and impactful moments the Zelda series is known for, but it's the freedom that allows the story beats to work the best. What I came to discover while playing again after so many years is that it's not the main quest or the memories or even the side quests that make up the plot of Breath of the Wild. It really is the quest that you make for yourself while exploring and doing things to the beat of your own drum that makes up the true plot of Breath of the Wild. I think that that's really special, and when I played the game through that lens, that is really what led me to rediscover and re-experience the magic of this game. I want to talk about some of the changes I had with my feelings towards the characters throughout my second playthrough, and replaying it, I still hold a lot of the same feelings I had on the characters during my first playthrough. The champions and all like the side characters and NPCs were really the parts of Breath of the Wild I remember the most clearly from my original playthrough, so this playthrough was more or less just watching those cutscenes again and kind of re-experiencing that in the context of playing the game. But overall, my feelings really haven't changed, except for one character in particular, and that character is the one and only Zelda. Now, I'm gonna state, I was not the biggest fan of Zelda's character when I had first played the game. I much preferred her role as a more regal and princess-like character in the previous games, and her involvement in previous games is pretty hit or miss. In some games she was really involved, and then some games she really wasn't. In Breath of the Wild, they gave Zelda more of a researcher role than just straight up a princess. She does work very diligently to uncover all the ancient secrets of the Sheikah technology that has popped up all around Hyrule, as well as preparing for Calamity Ganon. She has a very inquisitive personality, however, she struggles with her duties as princess. There is this tension between her and her father the king, over Zelda spending more time fiddling with the tech and researching rather than unlocking her sacred power, which she does also struggle to figure out. I don't know why I disliked this version of Zelda so much. I guess it just was because I always preferred the more regal versions of Zelda, but with this new playthrough, I really was able to come around on Zelda and take a liking to her character more. I suppose it was just because I could see the depth of her character and understand more about the pressure she carried on her shoulders. There was also this difference I could recognize in the cutscenes where she was doing what she loved versus attempting to unlock her power. I guess I was just able to understand all the depth in Zelda that I wasn't able to grasp as a kid. Overall, Zelda from Spirit Tracks will always be my favorite version of her, but I really have started to take a liking to Breath of the Wild's take on Zelda, and I think that is what really helped me kind of rediscover the magic of the characters in this game is, not hating Zelda so much, but actually coming around to like her as a character and how she played off all the other characters that I do so love. Whoa, hang on, what's this here? Hey, it looks like you found a Korok. Let's hear what he has to say. Oh wait, you don't speak Korok? That's fine, I'll translate for you. He said that if you're enjoying the video, then you should like, subscribe, and ring the bell. It really helps the channel grow and help me to make more videos like this. Well, you heard the little guy. Maybe you'll even get a Korok seed for doing what he says. Now we're finally on to the part that made me want to talk about this game in the first place. The gameplay. Because I want to focus more on how I experienced this game in my most recent playthrough, I'm not going to go as in depth into the controls and combat as I would normally. I'm going to say this as my statement on the controls and combat because my opinion hasn't changed since day one. Game controls good, I like how Link feels. Nintendo games tend to have a good feeling to them, except Star Fox Zero. Combat is fun, not too deep, but it's fun, and that's what matters. When I started my replay through, I gave myself the challenge of walking or horse riding to a majority of locations, and to not rely on fast travel as much. One of the aspects that made Breath of the Wild so magical the first time around was exploring a world I had never seen before. I was extremely particular about not watching any walkthroughs of the game before I got my hands on it, and because of that, I was able to have that sense of wonder while exploring this game for the very first time. My goal this time around was to try and recapture that feeling, even though I'm familiar with this world. That made one of my very first goals early on being to tame a horse. I have a naming convention with this playthrough, naming all of my horses after the technical improvements made to the Switch 2 edition. I had one named 60 FPS. He died. Guardian incident. Then I had one named 1440p. He also died. Another Guardian incident. Now I'm on my third horse, aptly named HDR. I refuse to take him anywhere near Hyrule Castle. I love my horses in Breath of the Wild. The reason I did a lot of exploring on horseback is because I wanted to take in the scenery and the atmosphere of this world. I could also take out any enemy camps along the roadside or do any puzzles or shrines. I got way too accustomed to just warping wherever I needed to go, and because of that, I would lose that sense of adventure and forget about how beautifully crafted this world really is. I wanted to take it slow and relax while enjoying the magic of adventure. I did intentionally avoid getting any Korok seeds because I wanted to do those all at once. Thankfully, with the Switch 2 Edition's incorporation of Zelda notes, the Korok seeds will be much easier to collect. My approach to shrines, towers, and divine beasts was also a bit different. For towers, I only made my way to them if they were on my way, and in the regions of the divine beasts. I wanted to rely on my knowledge of the game and use the map less. I tried to let adventure guide me. One of the more divisive changes Breath of the Wild made was replacing traditional Zelda dungeons with the shrines and divine beasts. I'm gonna say it now, I support this change. I liked having a little mini dungeon to do every once in a while in the form of the shrines. Most of them have a lot of really intriguing puzzles. Granted, there are some reuses. Looking at you, major test of strength. On my original file, I did all 120 shrines, but they were all like one and done. There was really no need to go back unless you missed a treasure chest or something. I was really looking forward to going through all the shrines again because it was like 2018 when I got them all, so I had pretty much forgotten how to complete most of them. I also made sure to collect all the chests in the shrines as well. I haven't gotten all 120 as of writing this video, and that's because much like the towers, I was only doing the shrines that I found while exploring. For the divine beasts, you can only do these once a playthrough, so it's been a while since I've done them. Now, are they formulaic in design? Yeah. But once again, you could do all the terminals in whatever order you want, so there's that idea of freedom again. I had always liked the concept of divine beasts, and even though the goal of activating terminals may be the same, I was re-impressed with how complex and unique the puzzles were. Using water in Vah Ruta and having Vah Rudania literally climb onto the inside of Death Mountain to rotate its body. I was really enjoying relearning all of the puzzles in these divine beasts, as I had forgotten pretty much all of them. Although I could never forget the brutality that is the Thunderblight Ganon fight. Oh yeah, I also totally defend the Blights. They're not as cool as unique bosses, but they really do fit the idea of the Calamity being a Ganon virus that infects and destroys the world. Speaking of, I do want to talk about my rematch with Calamity Ganon. I will give a spoiler warning if you have not played this game yet. Skip to the time shown on screen to avoid being spoiled. Calamity Ganon was a fight that I wanted to see if it was as easy as I had remembered it being. I know a really big criticism of Calamity Ganon and his second form, Dark Beast Ganon, is how relatively easy they are, and before this new playthrough, I would have agreed with that. But as I played, not only was I surprised by some of the challenge, most importantly, I realized the fight was about having fun, not its difficulty. I think this applies best to the Dark Beast Ganon fight. After you take down Calamity Ganon's health bar, he will move outside the castle and take the form of a massive Malice boar. Link is also teleported outside and is given a horse and the Bow of Light. In order to take down the beast, you ride around him as Zelda creates openings for you to shoot with the bow that does crazy damage. This is by no means difficult. Ganon is so huge and slow that none of his attacks end up hitting you. But something about riding around on your horse shooting Ganon's weak spots as an intense rendition of the main theme and riding theme combined, swell as you're shooting, is just so impactful and fun. As I was playing, I wasn't thinking about how, oh, this was too easy, or, oh, they could have come up with something better. I was thinking about how much fun I was having, and how cool it really felt to be riding around with this heroic music and a mythical bow, fighting an ancient evil beast. There was something just so wonderful and fantastical about that moment. It was just really magical in a way. It felt like I was defeating him for the first time again. There was something magical about getting to explore a world I'm familiar with in a new way, and then getting to re-experience encounters I had many years ago. Looking at them in a new, fun way went the distance in helping me rediscover the magic and the spirit of adventure found all throughout this game and its encounters. It's now time to talk about my favorite part of these videos, the music. The Zelda series is known for its iconic and classic library of music. We know this. When the devs threw out the formula, they also made a change with how music is presented. Breath of the Wild uses ambient sounds and soft music as you explore Hyrule. So as you're running about in this world, you won't be hearing anything like you would roaming about in Twilight Princess. While doing this new playthrough, I really made it a point to have the game audio up and that I wasn't listening to anything else. I really wanted to immerse myself into the game through the sounds and the music. This played a very large role in rediscovering Breath of the Wild's magic, because hearing the sound of the wind, and my horse galloping or Link's footsteps, and the light sound of the instruments really helped with that sense of wonder and immersion. Don't get me wrong, there are definitely grand and upbeat pieces like the classics in this game. I do want to sample some of my favorite tracks from Breath of the Wild, and we'll start with the main theme. The piano is the primary instrument used throughout all of the tracks in this game. The main theme starts with a piano build, and then it builds more, incorporating more instruments, and at the climax pauses, and then brings in the erhu and the rest of the instruments to close out the song. It's a very unique main theme. Now here's the track that plays while on horseback during the day. The piano is more consistent, but still very light, and if you listen closely, you can hear an iconic tune played by the strings. Next, let's look at Cass's theme. Cass is a Rito you will encounter, and he will give you riddles that will reveal a shrine. This theme is what plays when you are around him, and it is straight up 100% accordion. gotta give some love to Sidon's theme here. It's a combo of piano and flute, and it is quite nice. Rito Village is another lovely track that pays homage to another iconic Zelda piece. This track mainly uses stringed instruments as well as a clarinet. Sticking with the birds, my favorite of the Champion's themes is Revali's theme. Once again, using the accordion and strings and clarinet. It starts slow, but is particularly moving at the climax of the piece. As mentioned previously, the battle with Dark Beast Ganon is a very heroic piece that blends together the main theme and riding theme, and gets more and more intense as the battle goes on. I love how the riding theme sounds more intense compared to when normally riding. As you can see, the music and sound design was a part of Breath of the Wild I wanted to put a big emphasis on as I re-experienced the game, as I know how much of an impact it had on me the first time around, and golly gee, it sure did again, and it aided in the rediscovering of Breath of the Wild's magic, beauty, and adventure. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is a game that means a lot to me. It was my first of many great adventures on the Nintendo Switch. The game turned me into a Zelda fan and has helped make The Legend of Zelda my favorite franchise in all of gaming. I didn't think it was possible to recapture the magical feeling of experiencing Breath of the Wild for the very first time. However, with the existence of the Nintendo Switch 2 edition, it gave me the perfect excuse to jump back in, relive the story, explore and fool around in this world again, and lose myself in the calm and ambient soundtrack. My philosophy for replaying and re-experiencing Breath of the Wild was really the key to rediscovering the magic of the story, the music, and the world of quite possibly the best Zelda game thus far.